Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Best Damn Sports Show in Franklin County for Wednesday, February 28th, 2018. I am the Nighthawk, along with our studio director, once again, the ever so lovely exec director, Miss Elizabeth Malone, filling in for Joanne. And on the panel this week, the usual suspect.
Yuck.
To my immediate right, the Duke, and to my far right, Super Dave. And before we get rolling in sports, and I don't want to sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but with you, Duke, being our resident meteorologist, as we're just less than 4 hours away from March, I'm starting to look back at winter as, aside from the first half of January, it's been somewhat tame.
Yeah, just up and down, so I'm thinking of it, just up and down weather. Yeah, late December and early January were the toughest, coldest weather we've had in a long time. But yeah, kind of an up and down winter. Snowfall fairly close to average. Burlington at this point about 54 inches, probably maybe even 10 inches below average at this point.
It's we've had a substantial number of days, high temperatures above freezing.
In fact, today might have been. Does anybody know the high today? I saw it seems like
50.
It was a good 50. I think it was more. The record high today was 55. We might have been close to a record high.
I think at one point in my house I saw 53, but I really wasn't.
Close to a record high. But yeah, I finally got in some cross-country skiing a couple of weekends ago before the deluge came. But I saw one of my old friends, Mickey Doney, a longtime Jay Peak guy, has been head of the ski school for years, someone who's been immersed in Jay Peak.
Oh, we have a call?
We got a call.
Good evening. You're the first caller tonight on the Best Damn Sports Show in Franklin County. Hello.
Hello, guys.
Hello.
How you doing?
Go ahead.
Good. I just have to compliment Dave and Nighthawk on their True Blue Vermont shirts.
Thank you.
Both boys came in plaid tonight. You guys look like true Vermonters.
Thank
Duke,
you.
you look like a sportster.
Bobby, for the record, before I got on the set, my flannel shirt, which Elizabeth will confirm, is out on the table in the front room, so it was almost
I think you should put it
3
on.
for 3.
Duke, I was going to say, apparently you didn't get the
you
memo.
guys are True Blue.
Yeah, thank you. I was actually thinking that before the show
It
started.
was just too warm. I took it off only because I thought I'd be too hot with it on.
Yeah. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, everything pretty quiet on the baseball front. When they started signing like Alfonso and these guys, it seemed like $8 million was the price these people were getting, that were getting like $15 million last year. Now I see they signed Lucas Duda. He was started with the Mets last year and ended up with the Rays. He's a big boy. He hit, I believe, 30 home runs last year. The average so. But he signed with
the Royals.
Who the heck did he signed with?
The Royals.
Lucas Duda signed with the Royals today?
Or somebody today for like $2.5 or $3 million. So it kind of shows you this scale of money, how it is really dropping, how the owners really kind of dug their feet into the dirt and held their ground.
Hey, caller.
It's the pricing now is down there. I mean, I think it's bargain time.
For these dozens and dozens of available free agents, this has to be very scary because Duda did, in fact, sign today with the Royals. 1 year at $3.5 million. Now, he did hit 30 home runs last year.
Really?
Did it in only 127 games.
Really?
So you got him signed, and Logan Morrison. What does a 38 home run, 85 RBI guy get you?
What, $5 mil?
Well, he signed today with the Twinkies for $6.5 million, just as you guys have been talking about, or David. They're going to be 1 year contracts, $6.5 million. And Logan Morrison, who the Red Sox kicked the tires earlier in the winter, this guy's a pretty good ball player. To get a 38 home run guy for $6.5 million is crazy.
Huck, how many free agents are still unsigned out of the
still
over?
above 100.
Above 100?
Sure. Yeah.
Are you
Still
serious?
have Jake Arrieta and Lind and
Wow.
and Cobb.
Yep.
Huh. Hey, Bobby, what did you think about JT
They
Martinez?
mentioned Arrieta that your Nationals are looking heavily at him.
You know, I was actually hoping you would call because I'm having a hard time putting a price tag on him. He turns 32 next week, March 6th. I was not invited to his party. However, I was looking at his stats for the last few years. In 2015, he won the Cy Young Award with 22 wins, a 1.77 ERA with a .86 WHIP. Then 16 had a 3.10 ERA, 1.08 WHIP. Last year it was 3.53 with a 1.22 ERA. So he's treading downward.
Do you see a pattern?
Exactly. He's treading downward, and again, he turns 32. The days of the 7-year contracts with pitchers, I believe, may be over. And the Nationals actually may be forced into signing him because there's nothing in the minor league cupboard down the road. So I'm thinking 4 years, and I would only give him $20 million. His best years are behind him, and I don't want to, give him the money for what the Cubs should have given him.
He'll get more than that.
You think?
Yeah, 4 years may even be a bit long. Seeing now the last 3 years he's been on the decline.
Yeah.
Now, he started out, if memory serves me correctly, which it doesn't as much as it used to, but he started out with the Orioles,
And
I think.
He was a horrible pitcher. 3 years with the Orioles, ERAs of 4.66, 5.05, 6.20. And I think the Cubbies picked him up in a very minor trade or waivers. And last year, he was horrible the first half of the season and was lights out the second half of the season. However, I'm the big picture guy. I look what you do, your full body of work during the season. And 3.5 ERA is good, but to me, it doesn't warrant more than a $20 million contract.
I could see him getting a deal similar to what JD Martinez got. Maybe
an opt-out?
Maybe a $100 million deal for 5 years, but $25 million a year for the first couple of years with an opt-out, and then see what happens after that.
I would concur. That sounds legit.
And I think that's the kind of stuff I think the teams are playing. When you work that, I mean, I'm sure the Yankees wouldn't mind having them.
Listen, we're like 3 hours and 15 minutes away from March 1st. If you would ask me February 1st, I would have bet my life he would have been on somebody's team at this point.
Well,
it's shocking every day that goes by, and I'm starved for baseball news. And watching spring training games when your guys are pulled after 3 innings and you're seeing guys that'll never see the light of day in the majors, it's not all that much fun. But I'm looking at these free agents, and again, very little occurring.
Well, I'm sure they'll get their money. I'm sure Lance Lynn will get decent money. I'm sure Cobb will get good money.
So isn't it getting a little late?
Well, what could be
probably
happening...
good money, but not big money.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's happening...
I mean, big money, but not compared to... Now, if I was going after a pitcher personally, I would go after Cobb for the simple fact he pitched in that heavy-hitting American League East last year and the year before. So I think his back was up against a lot better hitting than the other pitchers were. And he may be a tad younger, I'm not sure. But I really think every passing day, it's going to sink into these guys' heads that, this is for real. And one thing I like what you said a couple weeks ago, Dave, was may have the players' union kind of getting upset a little bit in not wanting their people under ownership control as long as it is.
Well, I think what's happening is I think these guys have had decent offers. I'll bet you dollars to donuts that Jake Arrieta's had a $100 million contract.
Yeah, offer.
I'm sure he's had an offer.
But maybe 2 months ago, David, where that team probably have...
Well, what I think what's happened is these guys all like to be slotted. And Arrieta probably figures, well, geez, I should be, if David Price is $30 million a year if the guy from the Diamondbacks,
34 is Zach Greinke.
Zach Greinke, if
Scherzer is that third.
Scherzer's at $30 million, I'm sure as hell not going to sign for 5 years at $20 million a year. And the union won't let them do that, even though they're probably getting to the point now where they're saying, well, geez, because if these guys don't come into camp pretty soon,
Oh, I agree.
they're not only not going to get that, but you never know with Boris. You never know with Boris, and he finds a way to get him the money. Look at what he got. The first baseman for the Padres. God, I'm getting stupid.
Hosmer.
He got what, 160 million or some crazy, and they've got to be a little more creative, but they're still going to get their money. But what they really want to do is try to get that AAV at least up to what everybody else is getting, and that's where you're getting they're falling off because they're having their break with reality. Mm-hmm. And because Cobb and Lynn, those guys, plus the other thing that's happened, starting pitching is not as valuable.
Yep.
With all the money going to the bullpens, there's a few really premium starters that are worth the big money. But if you aren't Kershaw or
Scherzer,
Verlander or Scherzer, you don't want to tie up $30 million a year. Look at not the Yankees, but the Red Sox with Price. You don't think they'd like to get that money back?
Yeah. Price can opt out after this year, but
there's no way.
Who would ever take him?
exactly
How would anybody
the
want
way
him?
he's pitching, plus the way the market is now. Caller, I have a question for you. Our good friend Sandy Leon used to be a farmhand of my Nationals, and he's done a nice job with the Red Sox the last couple of years. Is his days numbered? Because Blake Swihart has no options left,
And the guy can hit.
and he's a good hitter.
They don't want to give him up.
I don't see.
No, they may.
You think they'll carry
I
three
think
catchers?
Swihart may make it. Well, he's not, but they're also playing him in the outfield. He's getting some infield. But having a third catcher is a huge luxury and stuff, but it sure
Not in the American League.
doesn't hurt.
But I don't see Leon there simply because you got Nunez, and unless you tell me Brock Holt's not going to be on the team.
Yeah, not sure.
Because they're not going to keep three super utility players on the team. Caller, what say you?
I think.
I don't know. I think you answered your own question,
Probably
but
did.
I think that phrase you use, super utility player, is going to be a household word soon. You're better paying these guys $5 or $6 million a year and have the versatility to do a decent job at 3 or 4 positions.
Try to tell that to Dave
you have a
Handy.
guy go down and you're really not hurt.
David.
You know, a lot of times you'll have your position player hurt, and you get this guy coming in like, who the heck is this guy? You know, a guy that can't hardly get a bat on the ball. But these super utility players are going to be the thing of the future.
No, I agree, because David always advocates to add the 26th guy on the roster, and I keep telling him every team needs a Brock Holt type guy that can play 7 positions.
Bobby, question for you. We were both saying we didn't really want the Red Sox to grab J.D. Martinez. Now that they have, are you able to live with that? I guess I am. But what are your thoughts on J.D. now being in the Red Sox?
Oh yeah, I can definitely live with it, and I like the guy. You know, certainly nothing against him, and I certainly wish him. I hope he has the best year of his career.
Yeah.
But I just kind of see a log jam there.
Yeah.
You know, with like I think we hit on it last week with Moreland there, with Hanley Ramirez there. When Petey comes back at second, we're talking Nunez. I see a lot of bodies kind of fighting for a spot or two there. So I guess it's not bad being overstacked like that. But again, like I say, when you're a veteran, you want to be in there every day, you know. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and Hanley's hopes of getting, 497 at-bats seem like a a pipe dream unless he gets off to a good start and they can't get him out of
Do
there.
you think it's the intention of the Red Sox brass not to give him 497 at bats?
Just as Bobby's talking about, just with all the bodies and
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, Mitch Moreland, I think that was a great signing.
Oh, the best signing of the
It's
winter.
good insurance if nothing
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
But, hard to picture Hanley unless he starts off hot and doesn't cool down. Hard to picture 500 at bats to me.
Yeah, I can guarantee you Hanley Ramirez will not have 497
No.
at bats. That will mean another 20 or 21 million
Yeah.
for the Red Sox.
Yeah.
100%. I'll give a Nighthawks prediction.
Guarantee.
I think Hanley will probably see 375 at bats.
Well, caller, who's going to
Big.
get the most starts at first base defensively? I mean, Moreland is one of the top 5 defenders at that position in all of baseball.
Yeah.
Well,
I
they have Ramirez penciled in, but if that is the case, if he stays healthy, I can see a quick tug in the 6th inning for defensive purposes.
Yeah, that could be.
I will tell you, I would rather have more. If I had my choice, Moreland or Ramirez
Yeah.
as a full-time player, I would take Moreland.
Although if Ramirez is hitting,
He can hit, but
he had a good year 2 years ago, and he
but
played actually a
Moreland
decent first base.
He didn't
did. He played
embarrass. He didn't embarrass himself, but
Did okay.
you can't put him in the same sentence with Moreland.
Well, I think
I agree. I think Moreland did he seemed to wear down a bit last year. He played way more than they thought he was going to play, but then he seemed to come back a bit. I think he ended up at about 245. I mean, it was a good insurance policy, but, the guy's not exactly all-star material, but he's a great guy to have in the team. I think if Ramirez is hitting, he'll get plenty of playing time at Moreland's expense. If he's not, Moreland will jump in more, but who knows?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with how everybody else hits. If the outfielders, if Mookie and
Just say-
JB hit really good, the Red Sox can afford to have a better glove guy in there in Moreland and not a guy that's such a good hitter.
Moreland capable of playing the outfield? Just say Jackie Bradley hits 235, and they're not.
Why would they be? They got JD. JD supposedly.
Oh, that's right. They
Yeah,
put
they
JD
got-
No, Moreland's not playing the outfield.
Yeah, okay, I forgot.
And Swihart, if Swihart makes a team, they may throw him out there once in a while.
But like
Oh.
the caller said, they've got a pretty.
Okay, and let's throw Nunez into this conversation as well. Where is he going to be?
That's another very good question. I guess
So
Super.
this was my point last week I made, and I think the discussion is kind of agreeing with what I said. We do have a log jam here, a lot of ifs and ands, but I guess that could be a good thing. And maybe with Hanley, the guy can hit when he wants to, I think, and maybe this will put the added pressure on him to come to the ballpark every day to play.
Could be. I mean, in general, we talk about that with pitchers especially. You can't have enough decent pitching. You're going to get injuries, and you're going to probably get injuries with position players
Exactly,
too.
and
so
that's the thing.
Situation may end up taking care of itself.
You know what? That's the answer I was just going to give. That's the.
I mean, you certainly think of that with pitching, but
Right.
I mean, look at their injuries. Nunez, they threw him back in the lineup, and he took one step toward first and crumpled to the ground. PD's not getting any younger. He's had injuries last few years, so. That always.
Yeah. I was surprised Nunez did sign with the Sox. I thought he was going to be looking for a team.
I was happy he did.
More at bats. So
he had a good time. I mean, he had a great year.
He had a good
year.
time playing with the Red Sox last year. There's probably something to be said about playing with a potential winner. You know.
Yeah, for sure.
One last thing. What do you guys think about the Bruin trade?
So I was pretty happy with the Bruins.
Acquiring Nash.
I guess it doesn't hurt to get another decent body, I guess. Hawk, you'd say that was probably a good pickup, wouldn't you?
The Bruins are a veteran team, okay?
Well, veteran team with some great maybe some of the best young talent in the NHL.
Bergeron is playing. I mean,
Krejci, they got some.
Charo. This is the year. Tuukka's playing his best in 5 years.
Yeah.
That was a terrific trade. He scored a goal last night.
So go for it.
Oh, absolutely. This is the year. I don't see the Bruins a long-term being a great team.
Really?
You see,
Boy.
Tampa Bay got quite a haul from the Rangers.
Yeah, Tampa's a good team.
They, because they got McDonough and
Ryan McDonough from the Rangers.
supposedly the guys the Rangers got were really all good young players, but
So
Yeah, no, I think the Bruins, given the fact they've got a shot to make some pretty good postseason noise, probably a good move.
I expect the Bruins,
Yeah,
the very
I
least.
think that was a good move too.
So,
And I don't think, that you look what we gave up. One of the guys had a huge contract, they said. They said that was the sneaky part about the trade. The Rangers assumed half of Nash's contract, but it was one of the other guys that we traded. Was a Berkeley, or I forget his
Bolesky,
name.
Matt Bolesky.
who had been a
He had
real
quite
bust
a big
with him.
contract, they said, and that kind of snuck through the crack.
he
but
had
I
done
think
nothing.
one of the things we gave up was a first round draft pick. Well, that sounds big. It is big if you're one of the worst teams in hockey, but we're probably, our pick in the first round is probably going to be 25th, 28th.
Yeah.
So that's almost like a second round pick.
Caller.
Unless you get, like basketball, the first half dozen picks, it's pot luck,
Crapshoot. Yeah, you're right.
The history of the Canadians and Bruins #1 pick, dismal at best.
Nothing,
And-
I
right.
lose
it
zero
does color
sleep
not
over
your,
since the
that.
flower.
right. You're right. The first round pick sounds big, but right, unless it's a top five,
I don't
there's
even
no
think
guarantee
of
after
hockey
that.
picks or baseball picks.
Yeah,
I don't even think
exactly.
about them hardly.
Caller, thank you so much for calling in. I think we lost him.
Hey, thank you, thanks for calling.
Now, one more note on baseball. And Duke, you're 8 years my senior.
Thank you for reminding me.
Tom Yawkey and I, for the record, started watching baseball full time in 1967, the year of the impossible dream.
I was there. I was at course game
So,
1 of the World Series.
My first 2 years of being a baseball fan, I was a Boston Red Sox fan.
Really?
Then I saw the Montreal Expo game, April 1969. I came home, raced home from
as in you went.
no, on TV.
On TV.
I raced home from Holy Angel School.
really?
I was all about 11 years of age, and I fell in love with the Expos, and that became. I'm watching. Actually, I had an Expo hat on earlier, but anyway, Tom Yawkey, you know him well, and I had never heard a bad word ever said about him as owner of the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Of course, and I'm too tired to read this.
Well, unless
but-
you were reading about the Red Sox, of course, being the last team to have a black player.
Right, Pumpsy Green
The
at
immortal
59.
Pumpsy
but
Green.
it looks like the lefties. Can you read this for me? I'm too tired. The lefties are
This came out a while. This isn't
right,
exactly new
but it's
news.
getting a lot closer.
Right. Headline: Red Sox propose original name of Jersey Street as Yawkey Way replacement. A movement to change the name of the public street where the Boston Red Sox play their home games is now in the hands of the city. The Red Sox submitted a petition to the Boston Public Improvement Commission requesting that Yawkey Way be returned to its original Jersey Street name as a symbol of inclusion, the team announced Wednesday. The filing of the paperwork comes 6 months after Red Sox owner John Henry told the Boston Herald that he is, quote, haunted, end quote, by the legacy of former owner Tom Yawkey.
Okay.
Yeah, the news came out. Stop there.
I mean, now,
Hey, that's the way things are going these
and
days.
Tom Yawkey back in the day was an all-white country club, but any African American player that ever played for him has never said a bad word. He
I don't remember anybody
is one of the
giving him
most
grief.
beloved sports owners in the history. Him and his wife Jean, was it?
Gene Yawkey,
And she
who
continued.
outlived him by a number of years. I
Right.
assume we lost
But-
her.
What's going on with this world?
Well, you may or may not know this. That makes me that prods me to throw in. Guess what you're going to get at the UVM? They've got their home game against Maine in the America East Conference.
Yeah, I got
think
'em.
Saturday.
Yeah.
Guess what's going to be happening at that game? Your good friends at Black Lives Matter are talking a protest. Apparently, they're planning it. I guess they have some tickets. I guess maybe even inside Patrick Gym. I just heard that this afternoon.
And I had told
I
you
knew that would make your day.
a year and a half ago, and David also. Let's not talk politics, and because
Well, I'm just
people are
throwing it
trying
in
to relax.
because of a sports
However,
connection.
when Black Lives Matter blocked what street was it?
Main Street.
Main Street.
Street.
And
Great PR move. Great
and
way
the
to
chief,
get good PR, right?
no doubt in my mind, by the liberal mayor Miro Weinberger, or
Miro.
Myro, isn't it?
Myro, whatever,
Miro.
told them those infamous words, stand down. The police chief down there looks like a tough nut, and I bet it killed him. Now, if I was chief, here's what I would have done.
He was
I would've-
clear
He
that
gave a reasonably
he
explanation
said
for
it tough.
that.
He's going to get grief no matter what he does.
said, I erred on the side of caution on the First Amendment. I would have done this. This is clearly against the law, a safety issue. I get in the blowhorn. I'm giving you 60 seconds to get off the street. Second thing, I've got my troopers there with tear gas them out. And third step, I go in with billy clubs and start cracking some.
Well,
Mark,
they
if it
didn't
had come to, I understand what you're saying. If it had come to that, you really
And
think
trust-
Burlington's looking to get? I mean, that they'd love to get publicity like that. As reasonable a response as that might have been, you really think they
Oh,
want to
trust me,
get
there's
into
a lot of
something
people
like that?
feel, I'd say 90% of the people feel my way.
Well, I'm not sure they want to see
now,
billy
what would
clubs.
happen to, if I have a flagpole on my property, if I hung a flag up, white lives matter? I mean, this is what's wrong with the world. How about everybody's lives matter? This is inclusion. I mean, taking one segment of the population. This is crazy.
Anyway, I wasn't looking to get it. I just wanted to tell you that.
No, I know.
Just heard today, it sounds like there's going to be a protest at the Groovy UV game.
My take on that whole business.
But I agree. I mean, I without even getting into what the response should have been, what about how stupid are the protesters? Great way to get, a lot of people on your
Negative.
case.
Negative.
I mean, blocking Main Street, do your protests on the sidewalk. Do all the protesting you want, but talk about what seems to be an insanely stupid PR move aside from the merits of their arguments.
Well, my whole feeling is that this whole bunch of snowflakes that have grown up in these 80s and 90s and the 2000s don't have a clue of what real problems really were.
Yeah.
When you go back to the Depression and you got 30% unemployment and another 30% underemployment and people are starving to death. You got World War II. I just watched that movie. We're talking about it, the Churchill movie. When you've got your whole armies within 30 miles of the ocean and the Nazis are coming down on them. Do you think that, and to take it further, as someone whose background, my dad was Lebanese, growing up in Winooski. You don't think that they didn't face issues once in a while for being different, when they're speaking Arabic and growing up and being dark-skinned and all that? And you know what? And I'm sure there are many black people in this country that grew up in the same time period that faced tremendous racism, real barriers to their advancement. And all these folks ever did was just buckle up their chin strap and put their head down and work twice as hard to show that their oppressors or discriminators that they were as good as they were, if not better. This bunch today, I equate this, there is not enough wrong with the world. They don't have enough to do. There are if a black man came to work at our dealership and he can sell cars or he can fix cars, as a matter of fact, if he were a mechanic, we pay him a signing bonus right now because mechanics are
hard to come by.
Is that right? Mechanics?
Absolutely. The labor market in Vermont for some types of labor is absolutely non-existent.
Yeah, talk about an issue, really.
If somebody came along, do you think we give a crap if he was black or if he's gay, if he's anything? All we want is you come to work and you produce.
Exactly.
And what's happened is now we spend so much time whining and moaning, and it's because they don't have real issues.
Yeah. No, I concur with that. And again, every life matters, period.
Well, they blame, I don't want to pull out all these crazy statistics, but a very, very, very large percentage of blacks get killed by other blacks.
96%.
Some crazy thing.
Black and black is 96%.
And you know what? A lot of the police in the urban areas are black as well. Criminals are criminals. It doesn't matter what color they are. Bum is a bum. Doesn't matter what you are. So this whole thing, hey, we love everybody, and never before in this country have people had opportunities. Why do you think all of these folks move here from the islands and these poor countries, and they're the guys when you fly, they're working in the airports, and they're handling your luggage, and these guys are working 80 hours a week, just like these poor Mexicans milking the cows. There's people have it so much worse somewhere else. These people don't really have a real problem. That just drives me nuts. But anyway, they'll shut up.
No, I just think that Black Lives Matter is a racist, offensive symbol. And
Well, I understand, and we've had over the years, we have many black reps from General Motors, and we don't understand, and we've gone through this before, but when you're white and you look nondescript, you don't have to worry about anything. But
Yeah, Huck, you have no, I mean, I have no clue.
I understand.
We're not talking flaming, talking like Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, U.S. Senator, probably one of the most conservative senators out there. He's quick to say, yeah, being black was real tough, the grief this guy got. I mean, you kind of make it sound like there's no issue here.
I'm not saying
and
that.
obviously, you're, tons of people have had issues, but don't tell me there are no issues and stuff.
I did not utter those words.
Blacks in cities and stuff sounds like they routinely over the years have had being pulled
But, dude,
over and stuff.
If a bunch of white people went down Main Street in Burlington with a White Lives Matter flag, that'd be called
white supremacy.
white
got-
supremacist.
they've got-
So
you're
it's the
right.
same exact
They've
thing.
got a ton of grief.
So the
You're right.
liberal
Oh, sure.
media
No, I agree. There's a double
would paint that picture.
There's a double
There is
standard
Huge double
there.
standard. Absolutely.
They,
and again,
Double standards. But I'm just saying, I wouldn't
Right.
say these folks have no.
Well, I'm
no
not saying that,
complaints.
but they don't do it by breaking the law. And then again, that flag is a racist, offensive flag that stirs an awful lot of
Like
emotion.
I said, just PR-wise, it just seemed like a.
Well, the last thing you want to do is aggravate somebody at a basketball
And I'll
game.
tell you what, if you're right about them getting tickets at the sold-out playoff game against Maine on Saturday night, 7 o'clock,
I heard some of them got
do you know what's
tickets.
going to happen? They're going to run out in the court. You know that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. All I
And-
know is I just.
Well, what these folks don't get is they don't, and the ones that are doing the biggest complaining and protesting are the ones that have the least. They've had nothing go wrong for them. It's like Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
Colin Kaepernick grew up in a white middle class family. He had, when you compare what he went through to somebody who really had an issue, let's say like Hank Aaron.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, there's a guy, if Hank Aaron stood up and made a complaint, I respect Hank Aaron.
Yeah.
Hank Aaron went through hell. Colin Kaepernick, he grew up in a lap of luxury, and the guy's making $10-20 million a year playing quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't, and when you're living in your gated community, I don't feel it.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
And but anyway,
well, thanks for bringing that up. Dude.
Yeah, we got-
thanks a lot.
Had I known we were getting into that, it just seemed like a timely thing talking about protests, especially with the UVM.
And we'll get into UVM this weekend, but that game is on ESPN3, meaning the computer. So you can watch that game Saturday
I think we're
night.
talking Saturday night, 7 o'clock, I guess.
Yeah.
First round Americans.
And they just
tournament.
played Maine the other night.
Beat them by 12. I think last night they just
Was
played
it
them, beat
last
them by
night?
12 points.
Yeah.
In fact, I heard a reference to just nobody. Now, this was confusing to me. They played at Maine last night. I guess it was a new arena. Wasn't Alfond Arena a pretty nice place?
I think
But
that's
I heard
it.
they were playing at a new arena last night, but I heard it was in Bangor. Why would they be playing off campus?
Boy,
maybe some sort of
Orono is
civic
where
center
UMaine is,
or
right? I've never
something.
been to Orono, but that's
Maybe
where university is.
they do a couple of games outside of campus.
I guess with a new
No,
arena.
Well, look
how
at
could
Duke.
they?
They don't play every game at Cameron.
Well,
they play some in
Well, Green or UNC more.
But
yeah.
David, if you remember
or
the
Madison
Charlotte.
Square Garden.
The
or-
Green Bay Packers used to play one game a year in Milwaukee.
No,
yeah,
I guess that's what it was.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess nobody at that game. I guess Maine basketball's not doing too well.
No.
Now, if we want to switch the subject, the golf was pretty entertaining this weekend.
Golf was great.
David, I will interrupt you and I'll let you have the floor. I do have my most hated golfer on the circuit, Mr. Justin Thomas. What a punk that guy is.
Sorry, but what are you talking? You serious? Most hated golfer?
He had a spectator thrown out because he didn't like what he was saying.
No, I didn't.
Oh
hear that.
yeah, he apologized for it, I think, today. What a punk! And didn't you see him when he won? Did you see him?
Would you call Justin Thomas a punk?
Wait, didn't you see what happened when he won?
Yeah, he dropped an F-bomb right on the air.
F-bomb. What a piece of
During
trash!
an
He won.
interview, or-
No,
He picked the ball up and said, "F yeah."
Oh, is that right? I didn't see that.
And that's not the first time I heard him. The guy's a punk. And to throw a spectator out because he didn't like what he was saying.
Well, the spectator
they paid
was
their
bad.
He probably was. But
The spectator was bad, and I don't blame him for kicking the guy out because when he was swinging, he was getting in the swing, and he said, hit it in the sand trap. And he also...
As he was swinging?
Yeah, and the guy was bad. So I got no problem with that.
Fans can be pretty obnoxious. I have no problem with fans.
Get
being
that guy out of there.
But that's the first I've heard of the other
but
thing.
he did apologize for that.
But
He said
the,
he overreacted.
But
Punk is not exactly the word that comes to mind.
I've read that he's really a good guy.
I don't think that
I've
just
heard.
sounds
I've
like a
never
totally
heard that he's a
crazy
bad
word.
guy.
I just
He's a
wasn't.
hell of a golfer.
I
Oh,
was
he's
not
super.
impressed with his reaction after winning that
Hey,
tournament.
his swearing doesn't even come close to Tiger Woods.
Right. If you're going
And
to
Tiger Woods is the most adored golfer
probably
of all
get on
time.
Tiger also.
But at least these guys are
Right,
smart
Tiger
enough
can do
to
no
not
wrong.
get caught in camera.
Oh,
Well,
Tiger Woods.
Tiger
is-
gets caught on camera sometimes.
Yeah, every other word's
But Justin Thomas is a hell. That was his 7th win in his last 30 starts, I think.
Yeah.
That's almost Tiger.
He's a good golfer.
But that's the first. I'm sorry to hear the thing about, especially what he said.
Yeah, and that was broadcasted quite a bit. And
I
they-
felt bad for that list because that list could have really used the win.
I'm trying to think did you know Luke List is a good golfer? I don't think that name meant anything to me.
And me
You know
neither.
Luke List?
No.
He's had more birdies than anybody over the last year. 530 birdies or something. But I guess his short game wasn't up to snuff.
But good golf. Boy, tough core. And Tiger, for the record, geez, Tiger got it down to, I think, -3 for a while on Sunday. Ended up at even, but
Did I tell you?
Tiger, play
I
golf.
told you so kind of
Hawk
guy.
told him to play some more
Yeah.
golf.
Got to play more. So my note here I have for you guys is when is he scheduled to play again?
Good question. I can't tell you that. I
Well,
guess
we're
the
only
tourney.
5 weeks away
Is
from
there
the
just one
Masters.
tourney that's a match play tourney in Mexico?
Well, no, this
Is there a
Mexico
PGA
one is
Tour?
a WGC tourney.
Right, but that's starting tomorrow.
That's tomorrow.
That's
It's a regular PGA Tour event?
no, that's only the top 64.
Okay, but my question is there a regular PGA Tour event?
No, I don't think
So it's just a match, just a WGC?
So I think it's just WGC.
Duke, you have before
Then it's back to Florida, I assume.
Then it's back to Florida. You got
Valspar, Arnold Palmer,
Yeah, the-
World Golf Championship, which is match play. I don't know if he would
the
Sometimes
participate.
match plays in Texas, in Austin. I
You're
think.
Okay, I was
correct,
going to
David.
say, there's usually 1 or 2 tourneys in Texas, too.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what his schedule is.
And of
but
course, the Masters not far away.
5 weeks. So again, I think
5 weeks
it's
from
as
tomorrow.
simple. He needs to get out there and play with live
Well,
bullets.
he even said as much. So, but I don't know when he's playing again.
I'm sure he's playing at Arnold Palmer.
But yeah, no, Tiger's coming off. Hey,
Played pretty
although
good.
for top commentators who still tell me, oh, I think this guy could win another major or two. I still think.
Okay, so I
still
thought
think
of you
they're
Sunday
dreaming
night.
about that.
So I'm watching the late Sports Center Sunday nights, 90 minutes, record it, fast forward through the garbage.
Yeah.
So they do the golf tournament. They spend 7 minutes
On Tiger.
just Tiger Woods. They don't talk
Really?
about
Did they not-
Dustin.
did they
Then
not even say who
later
won
in
or
the
just
show,
Justin?
Then 20 minutes later in the show, they go back and start talking about Justin Thomas. But it was all Tiger.
Well, I mean, for the record, Tiger did have himself a pretty
Well,
good tourney.
when
Maybe I'm not giving him quite enough credit. I don't know.
Somebody was interviewing with Andy North, and they said, I bet the television executives were happy that Tiger was going to make the weekend.
Of course, yeah, of course.
I mean, he's worth
Yeah, yeah.
20% extra viewing, I would
Yeah,
say.
that sounds like
crazy.
not a crazy guess.
Yeah.
But that list, had he won,
Yeah.
would have got to play in the WGC this week. Would have
wow.
gone to the Masters. Would have gone a 2-year exemption. Winning
Yeah, winning.
and when you go to the when they were playing 18 before the playoff, he powdered. He hit a beautiful drive, and then he powdered 4-iron right on the green. So he's on the green in 2.
With a clear bird
Thomas.
30, presumably.
Thomas
Have to lay up.
had to lay up because he hit his drive into crap, and he only hits an absolute
Unreal.
picture perfect chip
Yeah.
that ended up like it was a kick in. He wouldn't even had to put it in my foursome.
Unreal shot.
And you go, and Ellis is going, wow. I'm sure he's thinking, boy, what have you got to do to win a tournament?
Very good-looking golf course. A lot of water. I love the
tough
water.
course. Tough
and
course.
A tough golf course.
The cut was, I think, plus 5.
Okay.
Tough
Have you
course.
been in that area, David?
No.
Or no.
No, I was just in Palm Beach in November, but we played the Breakers. We didn't go over to PGA National. Palm Beach is where the old money
Old money.
and new rich money hang around.
Okay.
It's because that's where the Kennedys have a compound in Palm Beach. Remember that Smith kid that got in trouble?
Sure.
And and Uncle Teddy's running around in his nothing but a T-shirt on and no pants.
Yeah.
And that
Sure, the Kennedys are. That makes me think the movie Chappaquiddick, I think, will be out this summer.
Oh, I did not know.
Yeah. I'm sure the Kennedy clan will love that
they'll
movie.
circle the wagons for that.
Another golf note I just noted, U.S. Open is, I guess, the last of the majors to get away from an 18-hole playoff. Did you notice that? They're going to do a 2-hole aggregate.
Okay.
2-hole aggregate. They're the last major that had been sticking
do
with
I-
an 18-hole
How do I miss this stuff?
play. I just saw that today, I think.
Well, I didn't see it either.
didn't
Of
see
course,
it.
I didn't. Today, I actually had to work.
Oh, really?
And I didn't. I wasn't on the computer though. I will tell you that in the last 2-3 weeks, I purchased myself a Rosetta Stone program, and I've been teaching myself French.
You told us that last week. How are you
And,
doing with that?
I'm très bien.
Yeah.
Hey,
And,
good for you.
So I have a little bit.
Good for you.
I don't have as much free time to cruise the ESPN and the New York Post and all that other stuff.
Wait, did you see what was in your package? It's a French paper, a Montreal paper in French,
Oh.
of course, that I thought, oh, that might be good for you, and not to mention
Well,
your
I'll read.
daughter-in-law.
And you know what?
There you
David,
go.
do you converse much with your French-speaking daughter-in-law?
I try to as often as I can.
Do you?
And so, and she tries to help me
Her
out.
English just out.
Oh, her English is beautiful now.
Outstanding.
My question was, with her living in Vermont now, does her French fade, or she's just had so much?
No,
of it?
and she only speaks French to the baby. Plus,
Oh, is that right?
plus Bud is fluent in French.
Is he really? He's fluent?
He's
Yeah,
fluent.
How'd
good for
that
him.
happen?
He majored in French in college.
Oh, he did.
Not to mention having a girlfriend who's from Quebec.
Well, that's how they got set up because
Yeah, you
he
mentioned that.
he went to Chicoutimi for a 3-week immersion course
Okay.
where you can only
Really?
speak French. And as a matter of fact, I'm thinking about doing it
Is
myself.
that right? A 3-week
three-
immersion?
3-week immersion,
Wow.
and
Wow.
you're not supposed to talk to anybody in English.
Wow.
No, don't bring your cell phone. No, nothing. It's all en français.
Wow.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you ever
wild.
get French-speaking folks into the dealership?
We
where
used to.
Wait, didn't you get some business from north of the border?
We did a few years ago when the Canadian dollar was it when it was almost even,
Yeah, you even got above for a little bit.
because there were some, especially on used cars, they were some pretty good buys for those guys.
Yeah.
But now that it's 70, 80 cents,
78 and 79.
yeah,
Huh.
But I can remember in the old days, we used to have our salesman Don Tran, who was a francophone,
You had Frenchie Coupel working
and Frenchie, of
for a
course.
lot of years on Lake Street.
Well, we had customers that would only come in and speak French.
Is that right?
And then the other thing they would do, and this is something you don't see anymore, they'd be speaking French to each other in front of Don. And they'd mostly be saying in French, oh, the price is too high, thinking that he would understand
Yep.
it. So then he would tell them in French, oh, no, the price is just right. And they but we had a few customers that their English was so poor that Don had to literally translate for him.
Really?
Now, is he still with us, Don?
No, Don, I'm afraid, died a long time ago.
Long time?
He was very young, too, 62.
Okay, nice fella.
Don was a great guy.
Yep.
I really like Don a lot.
Yeah. So Duke, I do want to get into NCAA basketball. Surprise, surprise. Another black eye to the NCAA.
Yeah. With
Oh,
the
what
Duke-
a
with the-
surprise. They were paying
20
money.
I know you'd be stunned by this.
Oh, I'm shocked.
What's
I'm
the
shocked.
Duke? I
Wendell
know.
Carter Jr.
Oh, what's the? I never even did. What's the allegation with him?
Oh, payments, like $100,000 payments.
Huh.
Now-
I mean, Coach K obviously isn't implicated. This is just
No.
the
Not
thing
yet.
with his age. I don't think Coach K
yet.
is
I saw
going to
today,
need to do
Duke,
that. Yeah.
Coach K is the highest paid college coach.
Oh, we talked about that.
You know, take a guess what he makes.
Well, I mean, the
Like
figure.
11 million now,
I think
isn't it?
well,
$9 million.
Yeah, that's
and
the figure
John
I've thrown out.
Calipari's second with around $7 million.
Yeah, but
Again,
that
is that-
doesn't
and I-
count his
that
sneaker
doesn't count.
contracts.
No,
and the,
no, it doesn't.
and I hate to say it, and Coach K is probably worth to Duke every cent and probably a lot
to do,
more.
absolutely.
But now, yeah, we've talked about that. What's the allegation
well-
with Wendell Carter Jr.?
Like Markelle Fultz, who happened to be the #1 pick in the draft last June.
Thank
to
you,
the
Celtics,
Sixers.
for
He's
knowing not to pick
a
him.
name thrown out there. There's a lot of big-time
Mostly
names.
the Arizona. Sean Miller was the main guy
Yeah.
who's on the
and I
chopping
can't-
block.
But listen to this. Here's why, if I was a player or a program, I'd be scared. The FBI has over 3,000 hours of tape.
Wow.
They've been investigating this big time. And, as I said, it's a joke, and I don't want to just keep repeating myself when you get all these one-and-doners, and that's what it is. They're getting these one-and-doners for $100,000 to come to school for 5 months, and they're gone. And Wendell Carter, I'm telling you right now, and I've watched more Duke basketball this year just because he hasn't played. This Marcus Bagley the second.
The third. For the
I'm
record.
sorry, is just a phenomenal player.
Marvin Bagley the third.
And, they have another player, Wendell Carter, and he's got a man's
Another
body.
big guy.
And he plays like a man, and he'll be a top 10 pick. Now, the player from Arizona, in fact, DeAndre Alton, he's projected to be the #1 pick, big fella. And that's, of course, Sean Miller, the head coach, who did not coach the other day, the assistant took over. But me thinks the lid's going to come off.
I know you're especially shocked.
Oh,
shocked
I'm
by the,
surprised. I'm shocked.
But
Shocked
can I
there's
tell you
gambling going on.
What's so shocking about this? It was big news for 2 nights, and I have not seen one other word about it. It's just because big-time Division I basketball is such a joke now that nobody takes it seriously anymore.
But Hawk, what's the solution? I mean, what do you do with the one? I mean, what do you do about this?
Well, I'll let
There was
David
some
be
vague
my
talk about
attorney.
to and through to make him stay 2 years, but it's a
I don't
little
think you
tough.
let them into college. I think what these guys do, here's what I would do.
I guess one thought was, if you let them into, if they agree to go to college, they have to stay maybe for a second year or something?
What I would do is I would say, hey, look, fellas, unless you're planning on staying for at least 3 years,
Yeah.
go to the NBA
Okay.
and go play.
I'm going to put you in Sherman and Peabody's time machine here. Back,
Mr. Peabody.
And actually, it's not right for those guys because you know what? If an 18-year-old came to Handy's and wanted to sell cars,
you have to.
If he's good, if he can sell cars.
sure.
But you couldn't
That's why
hire
it's
me
hard.
over him and say, well, I really like you better than the Nighthawk. However, you're just an 18-year-old kid. Bingo, you're in trouble.
But
But here's what I would do. David and Duke, you're going to remember this. Don't you remember back 60s, early 70s? Freshmen were not
They couldn't
allowed
even play.
to play
Do I remember?
varsity
What do
basketball.
you think I mostly enjoyed in my
I bet
early years at Duke?
JV.
Watching the freshmen.
Yeah.
Freshman games.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me about it.
Yeah, and that's what they should do. How about this? How about these guys become student athletes? If their GPAs aren't at 2.5, they don't have the privilege to play basketball, and their scholarship will get revoked.
well,
How about earn your scholarship?
they used to have grade requirements, but the NCAA, in their infinite wisdom, and also in kowtowing to the big power conferences, decided that instead of having a GPA, they go to graduation rates. So while all of these pseudo intellectually challenged not intellectually challenged, these, I call them pseudo universities, like your Florida States and your Oklahomas and all that are supposed to be centers of higher learning, and your North Carolinas, what they do is
Carolina's a good school.
They're supposed to be, but they set up these sham departments.
They did.
They set up these sham departments so that guys that have a second grade education can come out of school with a degree, so that they can say, well, we're graduating 58% of our kids, and the guys aren't learning anything.
Well, North Carolina, when they were all that trouble, every player, their major was Black American history.
You know how North Carolina got, I mean, my Duke friends were hoping they got a championship or two lopped off. You know why they got out of that basically scot-free? Because the NCAA, after a years-long investigation, said, well, as bad as they were doing, they didn't actually violate any NCAA rules.
That's exactly right.
North Carolina got off incredibly easily on that, absolutely.
And they got courses that nobody else was taking. These courses were set up just for athletes.
I saw a former North Carolina player.
But I'm sure North Carolina's got
his last name,
plenty of
if
company.
I remember, was McCourts. He had a pretty good NBA career. He was
the one who kind of spilled the beans on that.
Yeah, he was on the outside of the line, very well-spoken guy, and I believed every word he said. But, you told me that a week or so ago, and again, there's another story I never even saw.
Yeah.
Well, the NCAA is just as rotten as they get.
Yeah, but
they're dirty.
But don't you enjoy watching Trey Bell Haynes down at UVM for 4 years and actually watch the guy improve every year instead of watching these 5-month wonders?
The guys at UVM, the guys in the mid-majors, they aren't getting the $100,000. These guys actually have to go to school. They actually have to graduate.
No, I agree. You got to like these.
They're
guys.
real college students.
Absolutely.
But you take Duke, they've sold their soul.
Yep.
They sold their soul. For years, Krzyzewski had guys, he never had one and dones. He only had his guys, and that's what the other teams hated, because not only were they good, but they were smart.
Yep.
And that was the key.
In fact, before he sold his soul, boy, the teams he had, Bobby Hurley played 4 years, Christian Laettner played 4 years.
Grant Hill, guys.
Grant Hill.
But you're comparing apples, and in those days, very few players were leaving early.
Well, they were a bunch of.
Well, not a bunch, but these days, I mean, everybody.
Well, you had guys like Shaquille.
I think that's a very unfair comparison. If you had Christian Laettner today showing up as a freshman at Duke, you think he'd hang around for 4 years?
Oh, absolutely not.
He'd be gone.
Yeah,
that's an unfair comparison.
But I think Coach K's respectability factor has dropped a lot.
So what's Coach K supposed to be doing, Hawk? Don't go after the best players in the country?
Well, I think
he's only got the most highly publicized program in the country. So is this like the criticism that Gino Auriemma gets?
No.
Hey, you're too good. You're ruining college basketball for women.
The difference is,
Gino, so why don't you recruit some lousy players?
You know what's going to happen next year? Duke, incredibly, doesn't have the top 3 guys out of the top 20. They have the top 3 high school recruits coming to school next year. We're going to be talking the same exact thing.
Right, but you didn't answer my question yet. What is Coach K supposed to be doing?
How about
not look at the best players?
He put his foot on the pedal. Perhaps he could call the NCAA and say, we've got to make changes. I'm 70 years old, whatever he is. I want to leave this a better place than it is right now. And let's get back to where freshmen cannot play. Freshmen have to earn the right to, as a sophomore.
They'll never do that.
Nice thought. You're in a dream world.
But
nice thought.
Why could they get away with it back when we were kids?
Because it was a whole different ball game then. You weren't seeing these players, so lusting for the pros so early. It was a very different world.
Don't you think CBS would enjoy getting the way it was back in the old days? Because their ratings are down 35% than they were 10 years ago. That's a lot. People aren't watching the tournaments because it's...
See, and I don't really blame Coach K.
But why are you blaming Coach K? What's he supposed to be doing?
Well, I blame your admissions. Because a lot of these schools, they got one set of admissions. If you're some white kid, not to forget white, if you're some kid who's a nerd, who's got 2,400 on his SAT, and he applies to Duke, he can't get in. Because there's a million guys already in there. these basketball players who probably barely have a high school degree, because you can't tell me that the best basketball players are spending all their time in a library. We know that.
Yep.
Because even guys at UVM, which is not the same, some of those guys I'm sure are not academic all-stars, even though they have some guys that I'm sure are.
I will say this, and I don't know, but when Tom Brennan was there, every player that played
Graduated
for him
except for one.
Except for one. It was a European player
And
that they
I
drummed.
suspect that's.
but I don't
bet
think
it's
all
the
the
same.
hockey players. I don't think all the hockey players
not
all
sure all the hockey
graduated.
players
But didn't
are.
the basketball team win the academic cup for 5 straight years
They've
for
been-
having the highest GPA?
For the record, the Duke football team, when they were a horrible team,
I always got.
typically would be the top academic football team in the country.
Yeah. Or I'll give you an
I
example.
don't think these guys are. I mean, I understand your point, which you beat me up about every week. I understand your point. I don't think these guys are as stupid as you make them.
Oh, they are.
But can I ask you a
They are.
question?
I think they are.
They are. They could not get in if they were 5'10" and fat like the rest of us.
Oh, I understand that point. I'm just saying.
They wouldn't. They wouldn't. Their application would get thrown right in the trash can.
Why
Okay.
talk?
Is it?
Now, the other thing is it's not just Duke, and it's not
Thank
just D1. When my daughter was playing hockey for Trinity,
Which is a well-respected school.
high-end NESCAC school,
Great. My youngest niece went there. Great school.
all right. I asked her, I said, how about the football players? She goes, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Those guys, half of them can't even walk and chew gum.
This is D3.
D3 at a premium school, and I'm sure it goes for all of those schools. The better you are athletically, the less you need to be academically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think what we need to do is if we shut the door on that and say, look, fellas, you can't play college basketball, you can't play college football if you can't be a college student.
Yeah.
Then maybe it would force the schools, the high schools, to say, you know what, because these guys, they didn't all of a sudden get dumped when they're senior. These guys, they've got people watching basketball players now. They have national championships for second graders and third graders. They've got rankings for kids that are in junior high school. And if they've got a gift for playing a sport, they get everybody's wink, wink, don't worry about it. He doesn't need to learn anything. They're gone.
Yeah.
They're gone every weekend. They can't study. They're missing 20% of the school for athletic stuff. And everyone says, oh, it's great. They're doing it for the school.
I mean, I got to think there are a lot of people who would like to make significant changes.
What
I
kind
can
of-
only say it's got to be tough because nobody, there are a lot of smart people out there. Nobody has come up with anything. It just seems
Can
like
I-
it's,
Too much money involved
Can
now.
I ask you a question, a legal question? Would it be illegal for the NBA to say no one allowed in the league until you're 21? Because would that be illegal at your dealership? You said, I'm not hiring anyone until you're
it is not illegal.
They would never say that, but whether it be illegal.
Well, what
No.
they've done is, see, because they have collective bargaining, that's how they can get away with it. Because they can get away with it now. Because now the rule is you can't be drafted in the NBA, I believe, unless you're 20 or unless you've played 1 year of college.
Okay.
Because remember, they had guys coming in out of high school, the 17 and 18-year-olds.
Kevin Garnett being one.
Shaquille O'Neal, LeBron.
LeBron's in.
And so that's where they came up with this one and done thing.
You wouldn't think the NBA would be. I mean, you wouldn't think they'd be real happy. I mean, the colleges. I mean, look at football. I mean, most of these players who end up in the NFL are playing a good couple, 3, often 4 years of college football. Some at a very high level. You wouldn't think the NBA with these one and dones they get a player having maybe 1 year, maybe at a good
'Cause
college, but
for the
they
most
can't
part,
be, you wouldn't think
the
they'd be happy
people leaving
with that.
college football generally leave after their junior season.
Yeah, so they're usually 3 years.
Yeah, so-
I don't know. I mean, I agree. It's a lousy situation. I've got no clue what to do about it.
So
seemingly nobody else does.
just getting back to
either.
UVM, just to remind you, Saturday night, number 1 UVM, 1 loss in the conference against number 8th ranked Maine. ESPN 3, so you can watch on the computer, like you said. It will be a protest
Or,
down there.
or listen, I won't be doing that. Obviously on radio, for the record.
Yeah.
The radio guy is Sam Hyman, I think. Decent guy.
I'll have my computer flipped on. If the top 4 teams win, and there's a big disparity between the top 4, it'll be Albany at Vermont in the semis, Hartford. That
would
did
be,
beat Vermont.
and that game would be.
That game, actually, I have a schedule.
Semis would be at
Semis would be next Tuesday night.
Okay.
at Gutter.
At
Finals
Patrick
the
Gym.
following Saturday morning,
Saturday
11
morning,
a.m.
exactly.
ESPNU.
Generally, ESPN 2, 11 o'clock in the
Oh,
morning.
really? ESPN 2?
Yeah. In Hartford and Baltimore, University of Maryland at Baltimore County. Baltimore County, Hartford is 11-4, Albany's 10-6, so it should be a good semifinal.
Any of you guys take in the U.S.-Canada women's hockey game?
0 seconds in the Olympics.
I didn't.
I did. It was terrific.
Yeah, great game.
And went to overtime.
It was a
And
late start. Had it not been late.
started like 10:40 or something.
Yeah.
So I fell asleep, and then I watched it the next morning. They replayed it on Canadian TV. I'll tell you something else. You want to watch something good? Of course, it comes in. What we got to do? Can we get Comcast to get the Canadian stations in HD instead of regular D?
Standard, yeah, that's what it's in. CTV's channel 21.
Right. Dave said, but none of those are HD.
No.
No, and because I know they come in HD.
But David, all the shopping networks are in HD.
Well, we ought to be able
I'm
to.
just happy we get the Canadian
I have
station.
called Comcast a plethora of time,
About that?
pleading that for one.
No, really?
Yeah, I call up.
You get it? Do you actually get a body, live body?
Oh, well, you've called Comcast. It takes about 28
Oh,
minutes
you don't want to call
to
them.
get
It's
through.
awful.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're very.
So anyway, to get off my or get onto my soapbox, I must have watched Winston Churchill too much tonight. I'm really
that was a great movie. I'm just sorry the subway scene was.
Yeah, it's all
Hollywood. That
fiction.
saddens me.
When you watch it on CBC or CBC, not one commercial.
Exactly.
And then Saturday night, I watched the 4-man bobsled on the Canadian, on the Quebec, or French speaking. They didn't show one commercial, and they show one guy right after another. I go, wow, this is good.
CBC Olympic coverage traditionally
incredible.
is excellent.
Let me take you back to 1980. I watched live the hockey semifinals between the United States and Russia on CBC without a commercial.
Oh, is that right? You watched
that
that live?
game. Of course, the Russians were supposed to kill the Americans. That game was taped
course it
delayed on
was taped.
ABC or
Right.
whatever the hell it was.
Oh, is that right? You
But I
watched it live
watched
on
the game
CBC?
live on CBC
Oh, really?
just because, see if the Americans could keep it within 2-3 goals.
Oh, is that right? And so it
Yeah,
was
so I
live
saw
on
it.
CBC does a great job.
And the trivia question I always like to ask, because people always think
Want me to
that's the
answer
gold.
before you ask
no.
it?
People always think that was gold medal game. I'll ask David. Who did the Americans
No,
beat in the finals?
Was it Finland or
It was
something?
Finland.
Yeah.
To win the
We've
gold medal.
talked about that
Yeah.
many times.
So in hockey, Vermont having a poor final 2 weekends, they did not get home ice advantage in the first
So
round.
again,
of the
last weekend, not a good weekend at BU.
They tied 1-1. They lost Friday night
No,
2-0.
so they
Tied
did get a
1-1.
point.
They got a point,
Not a
but
bad
nevertheless,
They needed, 3 points out of
Something-
the last 3 weeks or something, and got
yeah.
2?
So they play Amherst, Mass down there, and I don't understand this, but they play Thursday night because
Really?
typically it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Thursday night, no TV. Thursday and Friday, and Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock if necessary.
Really?
So you're going to have to listen to that if you're into it on
So Thursday, Friday, and Sunday if
Sunday
necessary.
afternoon, yeah, on VMT. And I will tell you, I did sneak out of work Saturday, traveled down to Northfield.
All right.
It's a great hockey game. UMass Boston against Norwich, defending champs. Of course, Norwich is graduated half their team, so it's not the same squad as it was last year. But just excellent hockey. The goaltender for Boston, David, a guy was just shooting the puck in from the blue line right by the boards.
No.
Just get off the ice, puck goes goes right by the goalie. And I'm sorry, 99 out of 100 times a bad goal like that goes in, the team loses. And Boston ended up losing. And quite frankly, I thought the Boston was better than Norwich, better overall skating team. But the goaltending for Norwich was a senior and's got national championship.
What was the score of the game?
They won 6-3 with an empty netter, and the goaltender they had in for Boston was only a sophomore. He looked jittery from the game.
Now, are they in the playoffs now?
So they're in the conference final, and I'm hoping my buddy can get tickets. We'll find out tomorrow. He asked me
Back at Kreitzberg?
Yeah, and Norwich is ranked 11th in the country, and they don't get the publicity that they deserve.
Sure.
They're playing number 8 ranked Hobart, which I don't remember where that school is.
Is it Pennsylvania?
I was going to say New York, but
UVM, Norwich played Hobart earlier within the last month and lost 5-4. So this promises to be a great game. So my buddy goes to me, well, will you go if it's standing room only?
Wow.
And I go, look, you see the way I look. Do I look like the kind of guy that I know you don't mind standing around?
And that's all I could get?
I don't want to stand around for 3. You have to get there real early, good standing spot. I said, thanks, but no thanks.
I don't blame you.
But I'm
all I could
hopeful
get,
we'll get seats tomorrow because tickets to the visitor team will be returned to Norwich
really?
by tomorrow morning. And Hobart it might be Pennsylvania,
a ways away.
So they won't be coming.
So all you're getting is just some moms and dads.
Yeah.
So you're hoping to get a seat?
Yeah. So 7:00 game down there.
So you were talking the UVM game. We're talking tomorrow night. First game against UMass?
It is Thursday tomorrow night, isn't it? Yeah. Yep. So I may turn the radio on for that. Now, football, I do have predictions, David, for the New York Giants. After much study and thought, the first player drafted will be Saquon Barkley, running back out of Penn State.
By Cleveland?
By Cleveland. And I'm almost, unless they make a trade, I'm almost giving you the Nighthawk guarantee. Second pick, the Giants will be trading to the Denver Broncos, who have the 5th overall pick. Denver will pick Josh Rosen, quarterback, because Denver needs a quarterback out of UCLA. Third pick will be Bradley Chubb, who is a phenomenal defensive end out of North Carolina or North Carolina State. Fourth pick, Cleveland has. They're going to get the quarterback. They'll get Sam Darnold out of USC. So the Giants, with a 5th pick, will get, make sure I got his name. This guy.
What about Josh Allen? Mel Kiper, isn't Mel
Miles high on Quentin
Josh
Nelson,
Allen?
guard out of Notre Dame, and Duke will remember this guy. He is the highest rated guard to come out of college. You'll remember this guy. And you'll remember since John Hanna.
Wow.
Remember John Hanna out of Alabama? Hall of Famer. And guards don't usually get this type of recognition.
Really?
But John Hanna.
As an offensive guard.
Right. John Hanna might be the best offensive guard. He was a truck.
Yeah.
And
great
I
player.
don't know what
Wasn't
else.
Jerry Kramer a guard too?
He was a pulling guard for the Green Bay Packers. That famous sweep.
And Fuzzy Thurston, was he the
Fuzzy
tackle?
Gregg.
No, Forrest Gregg was the
Forrest
tackle.
Gregg, yep.
Forrest Gregg.
Of course, the old Green Bay sweep of Paul Horn.
And let's see. Forrest Gregg, Fuzzy Thurston. Tight end was
Max.
Max McGee was a wide receiver.
Yeah.
It wasn't David Robinson. He was the.
I think he was linebacker.
He was a linebacker, and.
So you're talking 51 years ago here, David.
We're going further.
Yeah. They're 67.
If not,
Super Bowl.
if not. Yeah.
But Forrest Gregg.
Now, the Indianapolis Combine's going on.
Are you paying?
Great.
Of course, you're
No,
busy with
I
work.
don't. But
If work were no issue now, would you be all over that?
I
Could
don't
you
generally.
be? Can you pick up that stuff like on the computer?
It's a meat market, is what that is, and I'm pretty well set with the Giants will get. I just don't know if that trade does in fact go through. What additional?
Would the Giants trade up
What do you mean?
with Cleveland
For the number 1 pick?
to get that running back?
Well, and that's right, and I should have said that. If Cleveland went for a quarterback,
Then the Giants are
the
taking
Giants
them.
would take Barkley because he's head and shoulders the best athlete available. But I really think they want Quentin Nelson. Weston Richburg, their starting center of the last 4 years, is a free agent, and my prediction is he will be playing in the same stadium, only for the New York Jets. So the Canadian kid, Brett Jones, who played for us the second half of the season, will be starting for us next year. But again, we talk about it every time we talk Giants. They need so much work on that offensive line that Quentin Nelson makes all the sense in the world to start the reclamation
Well,
project.
this running back, though, really makes a lot of sense, too.
And they say he's the nicest guy in the
And
world.
he's real quality. He's
Yeah.
he's the real deal.
Yeah.
I guess the biggest Pat's news seems to be Gronk. Seems to be fairly serious stories that Gronk is seriously thinking about retiring.
They asked one of the guys on, I keep calling Comcast Sports, NBC.
Channel 40
and-
folks, Felger and Company, Maserati,
the-
Tommy Curran.
Right, and it wasn't, I can't remember who was interviewing, one of the beat writers.
Yeah.
He gave it a 50-50 chance
Really?
of Gronk retiring.
In fact, there was one report that Gronk wasn't happy at last year's training camp that he thought about pulling out.
Well, could
And
it
I
be
think
because he didn't get a big enough contract?
Well, they did give him a contract, but I
I think he
They
got a
did.
$2 million incentive for.
think, David, he
I think he's
only gets about $8.5 million
That's about
a year.
right.
He's underpaid by
I agree.
about-
He's under.
He's been underpaid by.
Underpaid, but for the record, he's also missed about a third of his games.
That's
so
a good
given
point.
that, I wouldn't make too big a
And
point about
Gronk
that.
has said more than one occasion he has never spent a nickel of his football money.
Yeah.
He's all the money he spends from
Isn't there
himself.
rumblings
endorsed-
with him with WWE or something?
He was on WWE a couple weeks ago. He went to the ring and
It's all.
But
Yeah.
more Pats stuff. I think Tom Curran reported that just a lot of grumbling in the Pats camp about what a military atmosphere. And of course, Felger, hey guys, you're there to win games and you've done a pretty good job at that. Give me a break. Felger thinks that's ludicrous, but
You know
there
what it
does seem to
reminds
be a
me
bit
of?
of patriot fatigue.
Oh,
in general these days.
Thanks for bringing that up. Something I wanted to bring up a month ago. I keep forgetting every week to jot it down. If this is not the barometer of where football is heading in Vermont, or if not the nation, a month ago, two of the biggest schools in the whole Green Mountain State, Burlington and South Burlington, are
high
combining
schools.
to make one football team.
Did they?
Yes.
Yeah.
They haven't decided what
They-
the name of the team's going to be.
Is that right?
Well, that's shocking to me. Of course, MVU, it just gets bad. I love MVU football, but you get in the paper the last couple of weeks, people writing in about concussions, blah, blah. Former principal Dennis Hill wrote a nice letter a few days
the
ago.
Swanton Library trustee chair, who's a very nice lady. She's
Right.
she's not a big
And I
football
think Dennis
fan.
is back down to Essex working now.
Oh, yeah.
But so conceivably, I
All
could
right,
see
so Burlington and South Burlington.
Burlington.
getting
Another
together,
thing
huh?
could happen
Wow.
is Vermont could be the land of 8-man football too, which is just why. If
Well,
you-
I read to that Wall Street Journal story of a few months ago, which was Rutland, Vermont was one of the twin stories. Rutland, Vermont was one of them. Mobile, Alabama, the other. Talk about football interest going,
Different
two
directions.
different directions. But that story suggested that high school football in Vermont might be on its deathbed almost. Yeah, that's interesting. Didn't Fairfax? I think Fairfax got together with another school. I at least read one story that had BFA Fairfax hyphenated with somebody in a football story.
Pulteney might have went co-op with another
Yeah.
school too.
Well, if you think about it, think
Well-
of the teams that were good when we were in high school.
Like,
Burlington,
was Winooski a good team?
South
then?
Burlington. Winooski certainly was
Was a
competitive.
D2 team,
How about MSJ?
always.
Yeah.
MSJ were state champs,
In fact, that
Division
was-
One.
That was at the head of the Wall Street Journal story.
And
And now-
my golf buddy Joe, who graduated 52 years ago from there, the student population being a Catholic school, has rapidly declined down there.
They've gone right in the toilet.
Yeah, and they got in a lot of controversy a few years ago. They recruited a bunch of kids out of New York City and brought
right.
them up there, and they won the state championship, like D2 state championship with that. But you know what? In our lifetime, we could conceivably see no football in the state
Well,
of Vermont.
South Burlington was a powerhouse. Think of Paul Jordan. They were
Yeah.
they were terrific
David,
every
PFA
year.
had a pretty good football team this past year. I think their numbers.
Weren't they down to like 27 or
28.
something?
They didn't
I
have a
think-
lot of guys
right, I
either.
think they had 28.
And no and
you're
it's either no freshman team or no JV
Are the
team.
Right.
Steelers, are the Steelers hanging
Right,
in
those
there?
are still
No,
there.
they're good.
Right.
They got fewer numbers.
And that's the scary part is Rob Coffey, who's been there for about 40 years. They've got, if not the best feeder program, one of the best feeder programs in the whole state. And if that's happening here in St. Albans, it could be history.
Yeah.
Well, let's face it, football is a dangerous game. And the
Yeah, I mean, there are issues. It's not
There-
like this
hey.
is crazy.
Do you play, David?
I played
I played
freshman
2
year.
years. I played 2 years.
Really?
Then I decided to make my first million. During my junior senior
I
year.
was very underpowered, underweight middle linebacker.
Yeah.
I even played some maybe like fourth or fifth grade or so. I vaguely remember being a tight end going up against
Well, David,
bigger
just
school.
to show you how
Never had any
times have
head
changed.
injuries, though, I can tell you that.
I started with flag football back in 1970, first year they had it. Okay, they gave us little vouchers to go up to WT Grant to
Okay.
get a football helmet. David, that helmet wasn't any thicker than this
Yeah, they
paper
were-
cup. And of course, back then, you get a little mini concussion, you got your bell rung, go sit out a couple plays and
Give
go
them
back
some
in.
smelling salts and put them back in.
Get back in.
I actually coached when I first got out of college with Steve Brooks,
Oh yeah, I
the
like Steve.
precursor of the Steelers, whatever they were called then.
Yeah,
And one of the guys I remember, about the only kid that I can remember coaching was Leon Boudreau.
okay,
And whenever I see him, I still.
yeah.
But that's going back over 40 years too.
You graduated from college in '78.
Yeah.
Do you have class reunions from UVM?
I have never been to a UVM class reunion.
Yeah, I would suspect.
I've never been to a Duke reunion.
I've been to my old fraternity a zillion times, but UVM, I really don't like UVM. But they when I was there, they always treated the Vermonters like they were just desk fillers.
Is that right? Of course,
Yeah.
the out-of-state, they were getting their money from
Well, it's the same thing as now. The out-of-staters pay twice as much.
Right. I was just going to ask you, what is it? A 2-to-1 margin out of staters down
Yeah,
there?
it's always
That's
been
where
that
the
way.
money is.
And you're just a number, and you're just.
But didn't I see something on the news the other night? Castleton, which soon to be
Castleton's got
University.
No,
What's it?
Castleton's University. It's Linden State and Johnson State that merged into Northern Vermont University.
Okay, but Castleton is still
Castleton
right.
University.
But I didn't
budget
realize
problems.
David Wolk had left his
Yeah, he just
job,
left.
and there's a woman president there.
They have budget issues.
But they're like $1.5 million in the red.
Really?
So they're making some cuts, and they said their emissions have gone down. Where that, believe it or not, and it's actually a pretty credible school down there, that they're just not getting the applications down there.
They have
it almost
plenty of
sounds like
company.
you could walk right in regardless.
Believe me,
Well,
Johnson State or the former Johnson State, same issue. I don't know about Linden. Yeah, I mean,
Castleton, I
It's
thought
issue
was on the
in a
upswing
lot of places.
because
it was for a while.
if you look in a newspaper, and you read the academic honors, and you see all the kids from St. Albans that go to Castleton.
Yep.
I mean, part of it is just dwindling population.
Well, dwindling
declining numbers of
population,
kids.
and I'm sure a school like Castleton probably getting 80% of their kids from Vermont.
I bet.
Probably.
Because my daughter years ago went to New England College in
Henniker, New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. But I was hoping she would have picked Castleton because when we
Would have
went
been a
down-
lot cheaper.
that was a very expensive school. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
No, I had one of my best friends in college went to New England College for his first 2 years.
Okay. And what I liked about the school was the nickname, the Pilgrims.
Yeah.
So we went to Castleton. They had a great cafeteria. So I told my daughter, great place to go right here, but it didn't really interest her. All that. I think Plattsburgh State was another school she liked.
Plattsburgh, some of my friends have gone to Plattsburgh State, which sounds like the New York college system.
The SUNYs are pretty good schools.
She went
pretty
down
good.
to New England College more on a whim where my ex-wife, a friend of hers, said, Go
Oh,
down
yeah.
there, take a look. She went down there.
But the
liked it.
former Johnson State, I know some of the administrators there. They're not awash in bodies showing up.
No.
Believe me.
But I also think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just thinking out loud, is people are giving second thought now to go to college with the cost of college.
Cost is pretty insane.
You better make darn sure that the major you're picking, you're going to get a job after you get out of school with this. You know, being a philosopher or something like that, I don't think cuts it anymore.
There's a lot of majors. There's a lot of majors that don't do that well. And I would recommend to anybody, and the problem is in our business, we really need technicians badly. Go to VTC and forget whether you're not like automobiles. How about carpenters, electricians? I'm remodeling my house.
Plumbers.
Plumbers.
Good luck.
You know what you're paying for that?
In fact, I need.
Those guys are getting more an hour than
David,
you are.
look at me. I am the type of guy that has I'm great at Jeopardy. I'm a book smart guy, but I'm completely helpless when it comes to using my hands.
And
I'm the guy that
I'm
lets
worse
his
than you.
fingers do the walking through
Yeah,
the yellow
I'm worse
pages.
than you.
David, aside from finding where to put my window washer in the automobile, that's the extent of it when it comes to
Yeah, I
cars.
hear you. In fact, I need.
But-
I need a
But
plumber right
I think we don't do a good enough job of putting smarter kids
now.
in vocational
Yeah.
things, because what's happened is, oh, I don't want my kid going vacation. Well, let me tell you something.
Your kid did that. Your
If
kid
you-
would be doing just fine.
If your kid becomes a licensed electrician,
Right.
he's probably going to make 70, 80, 100,000 bucks a year in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
If he's a communications major,
Yeah.
good luck getting a job in a newspaper or anything.
They'll
You're
be-
lucky if
they'll-
you
they'll
make
be
you're lucky if
25.
you make minimum
Yeah,
wage.
yeah, that's communication majors
That's
are
a
worse.
great.
But
do you
David,
think that might be that point might be starting to filter in with the talk about how a lot of the college majors are pretty worthless, and these jobs that pay these blue collar jobs that pay good buckos. You think that might kick back and we might get more young people?
the job,
maybe?
I tell everyone, of course, you have to have a little intellectual aptitude here. Become a nurse, male nurse,
Good-
female. I don't
good
care,
job,
because
good
I
job.
tell everybody, you can get your degree,
Go anywhere
put
you
a
want.
blindfold you want, take a dart, throw it at the continental United States, wherever it lands. I guarantee you,
That
you'll find a
healthcare-
job. And listen, there are a lot of nurses out there. They're $100,000 a year now, and they're the folks that run the
Our
hospital.
old friend Darren Reese. I give you a
Darren
staff
Reese.
nurse at
What a
Northwestern
great
Medical
story.
Center.
Well,
No, I agree. Great job.
what I find is that there's still this stigma of the vocational side,
Yeah,
and they
that's
stick the guys on vocationals because, see, guys that have to work on our stuff today, they got to be smart. You got to know math, you got to know science, you got to know electricity.
David, you open the hood, it's all computer. You have to hook computers up
Or
to
the stigma ought to be the other way around.
Yes,
Probably.
and you look at plumbers. All right, we just put in a new kitchen, and it's got that radiant heat in there.
Yeah.
You look at all the manifolds and all the crap. That's not a job for a dummy.
David,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
tell you, my wife will say once a month at least, and I don't holler at her, she'll say, sure it would be nice to have a man around the house. Do you know what I say to her? Oh, you're right, it sure
Yeah.
would be.
There, these jobs, and they companies can't replace the guys that are retiring.
Yeah.
So, for anybody that's out there, you want to go in the trades. If you got a kid that's halfway smart, instead of having him graduate from UVM with a political science degree like I did, so that he can be a bartender,
Like I did from
Yeah.
Duke.
there you may.
See, I don't like these kids that go to college to become English literature majors. I don't get it.
Music. There's so many. I'm not going to call them worthless degrees because they all have things. But unless you become the one out of 100 that actually makes it work.
Yeah.
I mean, how many guys I went to school with ended up being bartenders?
Yeah.
But anyway, but you know, in our business, we have a lot of jobs, and I can't think of any other business where a guy without a college degree can make a six-figure income.
Yeah.
Fairly not easy, but if he works hard and he gets smart,
So it's getting tougher just for you guys?
oh,
Just-
it's crazy.
Just tougher to get the people you
Tougher
need.
to get, and
Wow.
that's part of the that's the one thing that keeps you from expanding your business
Yeah.
and thinking about, well, you know, should we do? Well, can we get people to work?
This
know-
this is a national issue, I assume?
Well,
or-
it's especially acute here in
Of course,
Vermont.
with a population that's actually slightly declining, not to mention graying.
Well, great. When the average Vermonter is our age,
Yeah.
six.
I always say second oldest state in the union, only second to Maine is the oldest.
Yeah.
It's
With
And of
a,
course,
with a
Governor
population
Scott
that's at best stable.
said we have to get up to 750,000 by,
Good-
or
good
it's
luck.
not going to happen.
Good luck.
It's not going to happen. I'll tell you a business locally that hasn't been doing well, and maybe you know, it's under the radar. Mylan has laid off a lot of
Yeah.
people. They did 30 folks recently. They had to lay off, I believe, within a half year ago, and somebody told me today that there's another layoff
Really?
coming on very
And
shortly.
you realize,
down
I think, that Mylan's expansion was the key, the absolute key to a good hunk of the downtown revitalization. And the TIF, the tax increment financing initiatives,
yep.
another of which is on the ballot.
And I know
Tuesday.
nothing about their business down there, but they've laid a lot of people off.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another business you guys will remember. When they came to Georgia or Milton, Husky, how huge,
Milton.
Milton, how huge that place is
The
going to
hope-
be.
the hope was
And
it was gonna
never
be
got
another
to be-
IBM.
Right, it was going to have a huge campus, blah, 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 and it never even became
What did they-
half what they said
What
it
did
was
they
gonna
get? Did they get up to maybe not even 1,000? I mean, not to put it down, but maybe 500 to
I know.
1,000?
I don't know, but I do know.
You're right. There was hope that it'd be another like IBM, and
Yep.
that certainly didn't happen.
Yeah, and IBM numbers today are
Global Foundry.
Of course, if you're going to be out of work, this is the time because you can find a job.
oh.
If you wanna-
This is
if you want to,
if you're
really
going to
wanna
get laid
work,
off.
I'm
now's
telling
the
you right
time,
now,
yeah.
Global Foundries, formerly IBM, constantly hiring. And I've talked to
Yeah.
a lot of folks from there, and they say the young people, which we talk about all the time with a lousy work ethic, will go down there and quit within
Work
a week
for
or
a week
so.
or two or
And of
something?
course, a lot of folks don't like 12-hour shifts. It's either 7 to 7 in the morning, which is the shift everybody wants, or 7 at
Of course,
night.
I can tell you
But
that
they also have a lot of days off, too.
over the years when it was IBM, and you go back 30 years ago when they had their Cadillac employee treatment plans and all of the incredible benefits, you couldn't hire a guy that was at IBM because he couldn't work. He didn't know what work was like. Those guys had, oh, well, I'm not working on a Saturday. Are you crazy? Yeah. Oh, I've put in my 36 hours this week. I'm done. They were like European, but that's certainly gone the way of the buffalo too.
Duke, remember back in our radio days, how many hours we used to log?
Yeah, I can
crazy.
tell you. Yeah, I probably hit radio. I was paid per hour. I probably typically had about 60 hours for radio. And adding
I'm sure
free
they were
press
paying
at
you
the end-
300. The
At the
Kimmels
end
were
of my
paying you
radio
300
day, I'd
bucks an
punch
hour.
out a bunch of free press stories. And 1 or 2 days a week, one of those nights, I'd go over to the County Courier.
I worked
do
nights
dark room.
there for years, and I would work 6 nights a week. And
Huck, your work ethic
He-
is outstanding.
I've never missed it. I've never called in once to miss a day of
I
work.
don't think- I
Dave,
don't
you would have
think
loved me as an employee. So I remember you used to call
You
in
never
the station.
missed one day at
Never.
Bouillet Facets,
No,
right?
15 years
Wow.
down there. I drove down on
Impressive.
Route 7 one day when the interstate was shut down, and Dead Man's Curve in Georgia. Didn't even know where the road was. I'm driving about 8 miles an hour, probably in the field, but I got through there.
No, your work ethic
Hey,
is
we've only got a
outstanding.
minute left
We've
to go,
got
boys.
about 1 minute or so.
And we only have 2 hours and 31 minutes left.
And you realize what the end of February is also, the end of meteorological winter, that being the 3 coldest months of the winter, December, January, and February.
Okay.
I guess meteorological spring and fall don't get a lot
Well,
of
the last
attention.
few years, March has been really cold.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying, well, it sounds like Friday sounds like we're back to some
Normal,
winter.
yeah.
Tell me you guys didn't think about throwing your clubs on your shoulder and getting out.
It's funny you mentioned that. I heard the VMT folks, I think Charlie this morning made a reference to somebody having played golf yesterday, but he was fairly discreet about it. Didn't say where or who, but he made a reference to somebody playing golf somewhere.
Elizabeth, what do we have? About 30
About
seconds?
30 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will wrap this up. That will conclude this final edition in the very merry month of February. For Miss Elizabeth, Super Dave, the Duke, I am the Nighthawk. And remember, folks, you don't have to be a great athlete to be a good sport. We'll see you next week.
See ya.